She was a high flyer with a ton of corporate experience in finance and HR. When she decided to start her own business as a coach, she hired a coach to help her strategize. Her coach had advised that she would take at least 3 years to get stabilized in the business, but she thought she could do it in 6 months. You're in for a treat today if you've always wanted to know the nitty-gritty about starting a business. What is it really like? And while today's episode is about a coach in her coaching business, it's universally applicable to any business. Hello and welcome to Season 8 of the Womenpreneur Asia podcast, and I'm your host, Krista Good. My mission is to uncover the stories and strategies of Asian women entrepreneurs in Asia to help you and inspire you as you navigate your own business journey. This episode is sponsored by Redbox Studio. Today's episode is with a Malaysian entrepreneur, Coach Wendy Wong. Wendy is a managing partner of Petadiri Leadership and is a leadership performance coach. We spoke about the loneliness of being a solopreneur and also the surprises that Wendy encountered when she left her corporate role and became a coach. We dug into her strategies and recommendations about starting a business if she could do it all over again. We discussed the internal conflicts she had because, as she said, when she left corporate, she left behind a lucrative paycheck, only to start from ground zero as she only began her coaching training the week after she left her job. In her own words, she was all in and was completely committed to the art and craft of coaching. But it still took time to build up her business. Her own coach remarked that it would take at least 3 years to fully stabilize the business, but she was confident she could do it in less time. This episode is a must-listen if you're thinking of starting a business, but more importantly, how you can prepare your own runway before your takeoff. Coach Wendy Wong shares how you can ensure your takeoff doesn't have to be rocky and what you can do to avoid the bump. Please enjoy today's episode with Coach Wendy Wong. Hello, Coach Wendy. Welcome to Womenpreneur Asia.
Thank you, Krista. It is a pleasure and a big honor for me to be here to talk to you.
So, Wendy, today I love the topic that we'll talk about because it's something that is very close to the hearts of many entrepreneurs, and it's something that not that we don't talk about, but it's just that sometimes as we grow in our businesses, we kind of forget the early parts of our business, right? But before we get into that interesting topic that we want to talk about, let us know, what do you do in your business and what is it that you offer your clients?
What I do in my business, in a simple way, I help leaders create more impact, more powerful, positive impact for their environment. And we do that via supporting them, developing their skills. And so basically that's what I do.
And you have been doing this for a number of years?
Yes, I'm stepping into my 7th year right now. So we're very, very excited. And every year gives a different level of learnings, a different level of ideas of how we can create. So the idea that I started with in the past have evolved over time. And so, very, very keen to think about new ways to support our leaders in today's world.
You are based in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, right?
Yes, I am based in Kuala Lumpur in the Klang Valley. So I'm based technically in Subang, and I cover mainly across the, well, I wouldn't say across the globe, but generally we support leaders across geographical boundaries because I do a lot of online work, and so we can reach further and faster as well. So that's one of the key things about this business, that primarily it was built to support leaders across Southeast Asia with the same time zone and who is willing to work with the Malaysian time zone. That's what we do. And it's really an exciting way of developing using technology as well.
Well, that 7 year in business, you must have experienced a lot in these 7 years, right? And perhaps this is a good time to really dig into our topic for today. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of times when people talk about starting a business, people are always full of hope,
right? They have optimism and they are hopeful that the business is going to be a runaway success the moment they open themselves up for business. And I remember our earlier conversation before we got into this recording is that you talked a lot about also the early years of your business. And so perhaps I would like you to really now tell us a little bit about how did you end up starting this business and what was your experience before you came into the business? And of course, after that, what was the first few years like?
It's really quite exciting the first few years because you don't know what you don't know. And so before I started, I just basically have an idea that I wanted to work from home more. I wanted to use the technology. I wanted to leverage. Things are moving so fast in the world. And I didn't want to go same old. I wanted to try new stuff. And so I actually reflected on myself. I am quite a variety is a value that I have. So I like to try new things. I like to tinkle with stuff. And so the idea of I always had a vision that I wanted 3 sort of careers, 3 lanes basically. When I first started, when I was about 20 something, 3 careers was already a very big stretch. People just had 1, right? So I said 3, I'll have 3. And so I started with the business finance, that's where the business and following the money was how I did it kind of thing. So that was one area. And then I felt that the other area from a business standpoint that makes a lot of difference in creating great businesses are the people aspects. And so I spent another 10 years working on that and learning how to support and create great people for businesses. So that's the second leg. And then I started thinking, what should I do for the third part? And I thought one of the things that I wanted to capture was my family, like time with my family and staying around them more. So traveling less, being at home more. That was the target. And the way to do that, I think, was to create an environment where I could do that. When I had the opportunity to say, okay, what shall I do next? I said, okay, I first started as a consultant, as a mentor, because I wanted to bring all my years of experience and support people through that. So that was the first part. And then someone said, hey, actually, you'd make a great coach. And so I said, okay. And so when I stopped work the next week, I went into learning how to coach. I did not think it was so difficult. I realized it is an art in itself. And all the years of business and corporate, I didn't think I'd learned that much. But in these 7 years, I've learned so much. And so that's how I started. And I also hired a coach. And I remembered the coach helping me think about how to strategize my thinking around this new environment, which is corporate environment with lots of resources. It's very, very different from being an entrepreneur. So I needed some help there. And I remembered her saying, look, this will take you about, in a good space, 2 to 3 years to get yourself set up. And because I felt like I was a high flyer, I've been doing a lot of things fast, in my heart, I told myself, 6 months, I'll cover it. And to be fair, it did take about 3 years plus before I felt like, okay, I feel a bit more stable. I feel a bit more, I understand it a little bit more. And it did take me many, many hours of that to get to that third mark where I just said, okay, I feel like a little bit more balanced. So yeah, it does take long. And the purpose I wanted to share with you, Krista, is because people who come into business, maybe I could share a few tips later on to share about how I think I could have done things differently that may have accelerated. So maybe not 3 years, maybe 2.5 years kind of thing. And I'd be happy to share that as we go along.
So thanks for that, for really being open and courageous enough to really state now that, you thought it's going to take this few months, but actually it took three years plus, right? Yeah. And so that is like a realistic look at how business really is. So I want to backtrack a little bit and talk about your 3 areas that you were very strategic. How is it that you came up with, okay, I want to do finance, and then I want to deal with people, and then I want to have time with my family. I understand the part about time with the family, because at that point, perhaps it was children and all those things that made you feel like you wanted to stay back home more and to take care of them, right? And that is, it's fine. But how do you end up with the finance and the people? Was it a very strategic move on your part when you were in your 20s?
The answer is no. The straight answer is no. I knew I had a creative streak, and I actually wanted to do design and art and, be an interior designer and all that. That was my first want. And then it was my dad. My dad said, look, girl, we need you to earn some money. And at the time, interior designers were not heard of. So they said, why don't you learn a bit about business, go to a business school first, do that, and then once you have earned your own money, you could still continue to, pursue your passion for art and all that stuff. So that's how it started. So it was I accounted to my dad being a bit more level-headed and said, look, and I felt that it was one of the best advice from a career standpoint for me, because I think it created a strong foundation for me to build whatever I wanted to build on it. So it gave me discipline. It gave me parts that I wasn't naturally me. It gave those skill sets that allowed me to then now use my creative parts and use my natural instinct to create what I do right now. So
that was your father, right? Your father was the one.
Then the second part, I think, was the key was engagement. I was in finance at the time, and we were introduced to employee engagement. And I was always keen to find ways to help businesses. And every year, it's always the budget is cut, the growth, they want more. And the question is, where do you get the next level of release in terms of opportunities? And so that's where the people space came in, where it was the people. And I remember it was statistics. They were telling me that, if you get more engaged people, the top quartile and the bottom quartile, the difference in profit is about 21%. And that's because people are willing to do more. There's discretionary effort that people are willing to put in. And so it became a science that I was keen to learn more about. And so again, I threw myself into this space, and the company was actually very supportive as well. My line manager was very supportive. They educated me. They said, this is not for you to wing it. You gotta be educated and understand the science of people. And so that was the journey of that. And I really felt more and more convinced that if you have strong people, willing people, skillful, competent people in your business, and leaders that can unlock that, is really, it's a powerhouse in itself in a good way. So that's when I switched to the next part in search for more in terms of how do you release more resources into the business. And then this third part, which was driven by, I think, curiosity, driven by also I said, oh, this is a third leg, you got to do this right. And then I decided to really something very different. And I'm willing to throw myself into things. Being in a corporate environment and in doing your own business is a very different ball game altogether. And so it was something that I was willing to try and see how we go from there.
Just now you mentioned that someone told you that you should be a coach. And how did you react to that? And what did that person, okay, maybe let me rephrase this. What made that person tell you that, hey, Wendy, I think you should be a coach? What did that person see?
It was an ex-colleague, actually. And I think it's because every time they come in and they want to talk about something, after that, they feel clearer, they feel better. They feel like, yeah, it was 30 minutes time well spent. And it wasn't so much about me giving advice and instructions. It was more about just being curious and helping them navigate with their shoes. So people come in and I want to talk to you. Can I tap your mind on something? People do come do that quite often. And so when the person said that, I was like, yeah, that may work. without really at the time knowing. I wasn't a trained coach at the time. So in my mind, it was mentorship. It was more about providing experience and the freedom of respect for the other person's direction. So it was more of that mentor piece. And I thought coaching was mentoring. When I educated myself in coaching, I realized it wasn't mentoring. It's a lot different. But the qualities of curiosity, I think the other thing that I am natural at is I don't come with a lot of judgment. People can come with I'm like a white piece of paper kind of thing. They can throw whatever colors they have and then they see what it is. So I think there was that natural, innate part of me as well. So it was people coming in, can I talk? And then after that, they feel better and they say, oh, you should do this.
And you latched upon the idea and you say, wow, I'm going to do this.
And then
that sense of optimism, like, oh, I'm going to do this.
It sounds good. And it was something that I felt, by the way, I had coaches myself. So in my career, I've had coaches, and there was a note to self in somewhere behind my subconscious. I was like, I like their job. Because it was online, it was the phone at the time. So I liked it. And I did take a mental subconscious note about it. So when the person said that, it sort of like clicked for me. It was that experience of having good coaches that have supported me in my own career, and I really believed in it.
So in the early years, do you experience any unexpected surprises when starting your coaching business?
The first surprise, of course, was that I know so little. So when you work a long time and you think you've done a lot of somersaults, you feel that you know a lot. I think it's very humbling to find out in coaching that we need to release a lot of all this knowledge and be there 100% present with very little for ourselves, like just, listen. And so I think that it's a humbling experience, and I think I'm now going through the process. I think I have a lot of respect for the methods, the techniques, and the art of how a coach coaches. So it almost feels like, martial arts kind of thing, where you actually need to be able to navigate and control yourself and regulate yourself so that you can be of your best for that person, and not just use your, what you feel like doing, you just do kind of thing. There is that power of regulation, I think, that a coach needs to have. And so all these were big learnings for me and I still continue to learn. When they said, it's a number of hours, I said, why do you need so many hours? And now I know why, because it is an art in itself of letting go and being there and being present for the client and having that person be everything at that moment, and for us to be almost mirror-like for them is a powerful way. So these are some learnings I think I have gained through this process.
Were there any nasty surprises that you didn't really, think would happen?
Nasty surprises. I'm not very studious as a person. So the practice and the technique and the honing of the process was extremely uncomfortable. Even for someone very open like me, I found it harder than the way I used to ace my exams in the past. In the past, you throw me a book, I consume the book, I'm ready for the exams, kind of thing. Give it to me. I think I can get it. But when it comes to this, because there's so much control and personal regulation that you need in yourself, and there was no like step 1, step 2, step 3. There were parts of that, maybe structure, but it was, you needed to be there to know the next step. And people ask you, like, what's the best question? Is that like, can I learn up the 100 questions and be able to be a great coach? And I think the answer to me, and as I learned it, was no. The best question comes from the best listening. And the best listening you don't get until you listen. So you can't plan all these stuff.
That is something that I actually agree, because I guess in communication, a lot of things is really about being in that moment and listening to that person so that you can create the next question for that person, right? So it's not something like you memorize 100 questions, best top 100 coaching questions to memorize for every situation or every person that you need to coach. I guess you're a very spontaneous person. That's why
Yes,
self-regulation was a little bit tough when you were starting your coaching business, right?
Yeah.
But in your case, just now you did kind of give us some clues and say, okay, there were things that you did but you wish you didn't do, or you wish you had done better. Mm-hmm. Would you like to explain or elaborate more of those when you started your business?
Yeah, so from a business standpoint, I think I was quite clear with myself. It was a strategy I've taken. I was clear. And I just found other strategies that were very interesting as well. But the way I did it was I'm an all or nothing person. Right? I go all in. So for me, when I wanted to start this entrepreneurship journey, I didn't start till I started. So it was like when I was working in corporate, I was doing all that stuff. I was 100%, 120% all in. I didn't learn how to coach, do a night class on it. I didn't go for seminars in the weekends on it. I didn't feel I had time for it. And I just didn't do it, basically. And I said I will only start when I start. The downside to that was that therefore I start at zero. And then I build from 0 to 1, 1.5 to, I started with 0. And then when I came into this world, I didn't meet anyone. I didn't get to know people at the time. So I got to know people when I started. And then I realized a lot of people actually did a more, what I call a parallel strategy, where they built their reputation first, perhaps. They got to know more about the business they're getting into and the industry that they're getting into. They got to know about the network. And they did that all before they fully went full on. And so when I saw that, I said, that's great for them. I don't think I'd do it. I still do the way I do it. But I think from a speed perspective and from a growth perspective, there's a lot to be said about knowing the industry that you're going into, learning about talking to people in there, getting your reputation, learning a little bit about some of the tools, which I feel would be useful for, even if I was in the corporate days. So if I did learn coaching when I was a leader, leading organizations of that size at the time, I would have become a better leader still at that space. So I think those are little things that I thought, I could have done better, which I don't say the word regret because I don't normally regret. I decide and I just do it. But I just thought, if we talk about speed, if you invest a bit of time in your weekends or in your free time, just getting to know the place or the industry that you want to get into and talking to more and more people, and I would say it's a great way to start, right? And you can start that so that you don't start from zero, the way I did.
But it is also interesting that you started from zero. And I'm sure that you would have different strategies for doing your way, right? Versus the way that you say parallel, right? So in your own way, when you first started, what were some of the things that you did for yourself?
The first thing I did was I set up the company. I did all that technical stuff. I immediately the week after, so I was all in, right? When I'm all in, I'm all in. So the next week after I stopped work I went for a coaching course. So like next week, no stop kind of thing. So I think what I did was I put my entire self into this adventure, I'd call it. I wouldn't even call it a business. For a long time, I wouldn't even say, I said it's like an adventure, solopreneur, that sort of thing. And just threw myself into it. I created a website. And all I wanted off the website was just to say, if someone Googled me, they have something to look at. It was a resume online. It started like that. So I created that, and I wanted more digital presence. So I did spend a lot more time in digital. I'm very active on LinkedIn right now. I only became active 3 years ago or 2 years ago, right? So it wasn't everything at one go. It was just like whatever comes up to my mind, like, oh, maybe I should try this and I'll try it. Maybe I should do this and I'll do it. And yeah, so that's how I started. I think having the website helped a lot for me because it was at least something for me to do whilst I still, marinate that thoughts and what do I do with this? What is this that I'm doing? That sort of thing. Yeah, so I created it as on the go.
So these were like the website and of course being on LinkedIn are some of the ways that you market yourself. And I also know that you have a YouTube channel, right?
I like throwing spaghetti on the wall and see what sticks. So I just try things and that YouTube, I wouldn't say I've done it much about that, but generally I just test it out first. Like I've got one TikTok. I just put myself out there for one time and then I decided, I don't even know what my TikTok handle is, but I would try just one just to see whether or not how I feel about it. And I feel one of the things that's very important to me, this part is to do this the way I want to. The authenticity, it needs to be like I need to want to do this. Then I will then commit to it. So I will try different things and then decide what will make me happy and willing to do this every day, that sort of feeling, because it's all about consistency, right? So need to find that something that I'm willing to do consistently, like your podcast. It's really amazing, your consistency on the podcast, right? So, but you need to try first, then you know what you want to do every day.
It seems to me that you're the adventurous sort and you're also very excited about taking new risks in your life, right? Like, trying a TikTok, trying something and like you say, putting yourself all into your new venture or business. So were there any other creative things that you did in the early days to get yourself into this, like, okay, I'm on this adventure and I'm doing this?
The creative outlet I have is actually, I like Canva. So I do a lot of Canva things as art. Like I do like artistic things. So I find artistic outlets and then I try and weave that artistic outlet with the work I do and the people I support. Some of the days I start by going for a walk or a morning run kind of thing. And in that space, I'll like, maybe I'll do this, I'll try that. And then if I like it, I stay longer and I have more consistency around it. And if I don't like it, then I like, okay, this is a good try. So, but okay, it's not gonna fly.
Which again harks back to your love for ID, right? Interior design, remember?
Yes. I like colors, I like art. Another work that I think I could do was to be a gallery manager or something like that, where I stay in the
parallel universe, right? Another universe.
And people could just come in and buy art. I wouldn't mind doing that.
Yeah, I feel that you're very artistic. So I mean, the way you talk about art, colors, and I also see that your website is very colorful, by the way. It's intentional, isn't it?
It is. It's intentional to create. I believe that learning need not be always hard. There are hard parts, but I feel that learning, one of the best ways to learn is through fun and through joy and happiness and enjoying yourself as you get better at things. So this is a format that I do for myself.
The first thing you did was you went and did a coaching course or coaching certification when you first started your business. In the early years when you started, did you hone in on, okay, this is my target market. I'm going to go all in and zoom in on this particular group of people that I want to coach or help?
was told to do that. I joined a lot of night courses where they said, you have to find your niche and all that stuff. So I was told to do that. And I think there is a pro and con to that. So I looked at myself and I said, what are my strengths? Who am I? And I felt, okay, I'm an Asian person, an Asian lady, a female Asian, and I would appeal to maybe those women who wants women empowerment and all that stuff, right? So in my mind, I thought that, and but I didn't target them in any way. I just keep it open for a while to see what happens. But I thought that I would appeal to other Asian women, and statistics tell me that it's a 50-50 for me. So I do have women that come, and also multi-generation. So I would say, you think, okay, only a certain group would come to you for coaching. And I think the good thing for me was I don't box myself in so quickly. I opened it to, and I'm quite, I like numbers, so I look at numbers quite a bit. And it didn't look like it was just women, or it didn't look like it was just people who were senior. So I started being more open, and different people come to me. And for me, I think the way I see it is not so much the clear male, female, age group. It's not that sort of demographic. I think for me, what makes a difference is how hungry people are to grow themselves, and how much of a stretch that they want for themselves. Now, when I sense that people are really hungry and they are really wanting to stretch themselves, I think that's the great market, because I always say that I will go as fast or as slow as my clients. I cannot go faster than them. Neither will I go slower than them. I need to keep at pace with them and with their own way, right? So I find that people whom desire the growth factor, the personal development piece, and they want to find another way to climb, to try, those are the people that really resonate with me. And I think I resonate with them because I'm all in as well, right? So, yeah.
So it's not like the demographic, right? It's not like, oh, I'm going to only focus on certain groups of people or certain types of people.
Yeah, no, it wasn't. Saying that, I do have clarity on my interest area. So I'm quite clear. If someone comes to me for relationship coaching, for example, I would normally then recommend them to someone else who is more passionate about that area. I think the strong value that I bring is also understanding and empathy for the corporate environment and the business environment. And so that's where I think I thrive. And so that's the space that I play.
So does it mean only C-suite?
No, it doesn't mean only C-suite. I think, so just to share, the oldest person I've coached is in his 70s and the youngest is 14. So there is a huge range there. But I think if a person wants, I think it's about leadership. When they want to step to the next level of how do I lead myself better? How do I manage myself? Then it's one level. I think that's where the starter is. When that person almost awakes to the idea that they want to manage themselves in a way to lead themselves first. I always say lead yourself first before you lead other people. So that's the first level. And then when they get promoted to become a leader of teams, of people under them, other lives under them kind of thing, right? I think it requires different skill sets. And so that's an area, again, that I have a lot of expertise. So I do have a lot of empathy for that space as well. And the letting go of things that they know so that they can embrace new stuff. After that, from team leader, they move to maybe department head, another set of skill sets that they need to acquire. And so I'm all about building your skills. so that you have bigger impact on the environment that you work in. So it moves that way. And every level, I think, requires a different quality. Yes. So it's not just C-suite. It's that whole leveling of
that whole journey, right? The career of a specific person who's working in corporate.
Yeah.
But I'm interested in the 14-year-old. How is it that a 14-year-old gets Wendy Wong?
They Google and they find me, and it's normally, I'm very, very impressed with them, because even at 14 or younger, they have this desire to want to understand how to curate their career. They think about, what do I study so that who can I be and all that stuff. So they reach out to me on my website and I have a conversation with them. And so it helps them. It's very inspiring, I would say, to have people so young thinking about their way, right? And so I feel very privileged.
Okay, so you talked about the business, right? But I also want to talk a little bit about, were there any challenges or any specific incidents that happened to you as you were growing your business or launching your business?
Okay, as I was maybe surprises for myself even. So when I did this online thing, I felt that I by nature, I am okay to be alone, and I'm one of those that could sit in a cave. I thought I can sit in a cave myself. It's okay, I have that quality in me. So one of the big surprises was when you move into this space, when you have teams and people around you all the time, and suddenly I moved into a space where there's no one. It was me, myself, and I thought, I knew that I was going to have that. But there's very big difference between expectation in your head and reality when you experience it. So that was my first wake up kind of thing. And I in my early years, I do speak a lot about loneliness in the journey, because I did feel like my world, because I was zero, right, almost stopped and everyone else kept going, right? So it felt like my car just like stalled. Everybody else had things to do, places to go, and I just full stop kind of thing. So that loneliness piece was a big one for me when I first started. And again, I'm very, very thankful for the community that have supported me. And I just had to find another world, I guess, and to find new friends, new network, new, is that a new, I would say, you have the same problems kind of thing. Yeah, so that was a surprise. I thought, and then when I did it, I was like, so that was big for me. Another thing that was big for me was I like to think, I don't know, I'm quite shy as a person. So putting myself out there was another big challenge. It was a mindset one. I questioned myself a lot. I struggled with my first blog. It took me a long time to even write the first one. And I questioned whether it was of any value or goodness. I had to send it to my sister, who did a better job in editing. I sent it to her in the US, and she sent it back to me a week later to say, okay, these are some of the things that you'd like to think about, so stuff like that. And so there was a lot of questioning about my value early on in my career, in this career, I would say, in this space. And of course, after a while, and I realized, being a coach, right, I'm more observant for mindsets and all that. And I realized how much my mindset was holding me back. And it still holds me back in so many ways, different sort of blocks. And for me to then recognize it and then let go of the ego a little bit and just do your thing, right? So all those were very hard moments, and it continues to be hard. So I wouldn't say that it stopped already. It continues to have different way of, locking you in. So I would say that me, myself, and I was one of the hardest, working through my own assumptions, my own barriers, I'd say. Yeah.
And I think you also touched on a very interesting thing, but because being a person in business and you starting off on, being a solopreneur and all that, and I think that itself is something that most people never probably even considered, right? Like, it's going to be a lonely journey. So most people think they'll always be surrounded by people, whether it's clients or, friends and things like that. But I think suddenly when you're in business, there are only problems that you can discuss with other business people. And I think even sometimes your family or even your relatives or people around you whom you thought would be able to understand may not necessarily understand. So I think that's the benefit of why we have groups out there that are related to business or coaching, so that we can all share that same angst, right?
Yeah. And it's so important to have that, right? So that we can say we're not alone in this, and there are other people around who are equally passionate and have gone through a lot of things that we go through. Others have gone through before, and we can learn from them and their generosity. So, yeah. Another thing I think was difficult for me, if I may, was I was a wage earner. I got salary every month. And then I went to zero because I started at zero. So there was also that conflict within my mind about, so now, okay, it just drops. And I think there were parts of days where I said, okay, you can go and find another job and you could, earn a lot more perhaps than what you do. Those conflicts do come in, I would say, and it does hover around my mind for it just comes and pokes you a little bit, I would say. And for me, I think I was quite clear. This was I wanted to do this, right? So I was clear about it, but I can imagine the temptation to say, okay, it's so hard. It's so hard, right? So why don't I take there's a faster lane on the other side, just go put your resume in somewhere and, get that. But I was quite clear for myself. I wanted to try this and I wanted to make it work. So that was always conflicting for me for a long time.
And since you mentioned that, can I just ask, how long did it take you to be at the end when you're okay with it? Okay, finally, I get to see some stability in the business. This is actually the tough thing, right? For a lot of people, when you first start a business, especially we come from corporate, it's like you had this nice salary. And then from that nice salary, it just, like you say, it dropped down to zero because you started like clean finish, and then you start another marathon, another sprint, right? So that a lot of times people don't see that coming until it happens to them. So in your case, did you take a long time to get to the financial stability? And the other question I wanted to know was did you have a nice fat nest egg to tide you through, because you're doing certification, right? And you had to do so many things, your website, certification, yeah. How did that work for you?
So one thing good for me is that this entrepreneurship world happened at the latter part of my, I would say, a career spans 45, 50 years kind of thing, right? If you really want, I like to work. So I think if you want to say work kind of thing, 40 years, 45 years. So it's a latter part. And I have, through the 20 over years, 30 years of work, I have saved, I'm a saver in general. So I've had that for myself. Yeah. So that helped a lot. So the pressure was not on me to, every day, keep the hamster wheel running kind of thing. So I think that was the benefit. And because I am I am a financial person, right?
Yes, I remember that.
But even as I am a CPA, before I did this, I actually hired also CFAs, right? I had two. I invited two CFAs to have a look at my numbers to just double check. Well, maybe I missed something that I didn't. So it was a very calculated move in that sense. I had one CFA looked at it, and then they gave me, this CFA, I told them I'm not interested in investing or what. I just want a professional advice, like review of a snapshot of what I have and tell me,
Like how healthy, right? How healthy is it?
If I missed this, anything. I had one, and after that I had another. I do take the effort to make sure all these elements are in order for myself, so I know what I can do with how long I've got, kind of thing. Yeah. So
it worked.
It worked because I think I have a net in that sense that I've worked hard through the years, save kind of thing, and so that helped in so many ways, right? And it also helped me define the way I would do business. So I didn't feel I needed to climb every mountain. I needed to take every job. I could become very selective in how I provide the work that I do. When I first went into the industry, I saw a lot of other people move very fast and all that. And I knew that that was not the world that I wanted, right? Mine was slightly different. I wanted to create a lifestyle business that I enjoy, that people I work with are in a space where they enjoy, and we're not that driven in that sense. And I think that helped me walk away when I have to walk away. When I think from a principle perspective, I didn't think this is the right thing I want to do, then I have the capacity to walk away. So financial freedom is a very important part of the whole calculation, I'd say.
So you're actually not that spontaneous in the sense that you actually made calculated risk. You didn't literally just jump without a parachute.
No, I have, I make sure I have my parachute, the planes, everything down there. I think the spontaneity is more about the energy of a person, so that you can put yourself all in and you can see yourself through and hold your breath long enough. I think that's very important. Or else I would find that I may have to make certain decisions, and I think we all weigh all these things.
Yeah. But I think you weighed it because you have years of experience in corporate.
Yeah. And also I know that from a business standpoint, I don't know where this number comes from, but I've always been in my head, is every 3 businesses that is launched or is registered, they always say you look left, you look right, they're gone in the first 3 to 5 years. So, and it's the same statistic as the Navy SEAL or something like that. So, so it's easy to start. It's harder to sustain, I'd say. And even with the registration of the company, I remember the guy telling me when I was registering, so he's a government guy, he said, putting your registration is important. It's like, he said, it was like marriage, sign's very easy. Divorce is the problem. So it is about, when you close your business, you have to do so much other things to the business, much more than when you open a business. So I don't know, when people say this, I sort of perk up. I take them as advice, and also like helping me, like tell me, hey, if you want to register, it's really, really easy. But once you register to close, it's going to cost you. So before you register, think carefully, that sort of thing. So in that sense, I'm quite meticulous, I'd say.
So your plan A and your plan B and probably plan C, C, D, E, right?
The rest you pedal as much as you can.
So I would also like to talk about some of the systems or tools that you use in order to keep yourself consistent and keep yourself structured and keep things moving, along? And I know, of course, you have experience in finance, but what are some of the tools or systems that you're using your day-to-day for your business right now?
Okay, the tools and systems I use for my website, I use Wix. I just choose one, eeny, meeny, miny, moe, I went for it. And because I started there, I stayed there kind of thing. And so that was one. I have a tax agent to do, because I think taxes are something that we shouldn't, we should be quite clean with that. So you get a tax agent for that. What else? I have Canva. Canva is also a place where I express my artistic whatever. So Canva is wonderful. I love that. I also, if I were to do videos, I'm not big with videos yet, but I will try it soon enough. And I've tried a couple. I think Descript is one of those that I kind of like, because it takes away the ooh kind of thing automatically. So I like that. And also, I think one of the things I do is I use freelancers quite a lot. I get them to support me, and if you find a good person, it's important to work well with the person. And so that's about it, I think. Yeah, I use all this, Microsoft, Google. All I buy all those. I buy, but I'm also quite, if I don't use, I will cancel, because it's very easy to buy all this digital stuff and then forget about it, and then you get billed all the time. So once I don't use it, I cancel. Yeah.
I'd like to get back to your point on freelancers. How do you find those freelancers, or how do you? I'm sure. Okay, and now I know, because you have a background in HR, right? You can suss out all those people that you need.
I use platforms a lot. Haven't tried like Upwork and all that. I normally use Indeed. I use whatever platforms that are available, and people write in and you screen them. So that's one way. I put it on my website that if you're interested in working, you can put your name in your website, and people do as well. So that's useful. Yeah.
I think you are listing like internships, right?
Yeah,
internships in your company.
But I find that interns, maybe the time is too short. I much rather a longer term relationship. So I think freelancers who are 100% onto this is easier for me, so that I don't have to teach and reteach. But yeah, I put it all there so that people can write in. I don't run a humongous thing, so it's all about, for me, what's important is that people enjoy working with me and in Petadiri. They like the way we do it in the company. I think that's important. And we work remotely most of the time. So again, it doesn't have to be just people in the country, right? But I like people nearby sometimes, because sometimes you want to have coffee with them and you want to have a bit of team bonding. That's good as well. So the digital world is so rich, I would say. It's like the Amazon, It's so rich. And so it's all about just getting in there and leveraging on the technology. Was never here 10 years ago. It's so new, so good. Yeah, I love it.
So what is it that you really enjoy about your business?
In the past, I worked on the business, and you create certain, I think, let's say I was a head of people. I thought really hard for the people, but I did it from a very systemic way. So it was more indirect, right? I created organizational structure that will grow people and all that stuff, right? So but it is a design, and it's a systemic design. Although I put everything of myself in there, people don't feel me. Like, people don't get to know me as the way I coach right now. So I coach a lot of one-on-ones. It's a very personal journey, and therefore it is a personal relationship in that sense. And I think that's amazingly satisfying for me, to work with people directly and personally. And I do that with my clients. When I coach for businesses, it's also a very personal thing. They get that personal touch, I think, that makes all the difference in terms of how you enjoy the process and how you enjoy the journey. Yeah, so I think that's the part where I truly, truly enjoy. Yeah.
Okay, so before we wrap up, I wanted to ask some rapid fire questions, right?
Okay.
So, what is the craziest thing you've ever done?
What is the craziest thing I've ever done? The one that I think about was that I was relatively afraid of heights. Like, I get the tingles. And so when I was walking, this was university days where I was walking I was from Melbourne University. So I was walking into the Melbourne University at the time. It was quite cool. I think it was at 13 degrees or something like that. Cool, I was still having my jacket. And then there was this sign to say, abseiling, anyone, right? They had the abseiling club, 14th floor. And I didn't think hard. I just turned and I pressed the button, went up to the 14th, and I said, I want to try abseiling. And everything was okay until they harnessed me all up. They said, no practice, they just say pull like that, it will stop, pull like this, it will be okay, kind of thing, you keep going downwards. And then there was this very skinny guy. I was like, if I fall, I don't think you can catch me, kind of thing. So there was a guy that was also harnessed to me, and I looked down and it was so scary. The most difficult part, they said, was lean back. You have to lean back to put your legs against the wall. And leaning back is like, oh my God, what do you mean lean back, kind of thing, right?
There's nothing behind you.
So that was a crazy one, which I'm proud that I tried. Yeah, so yes, that's a crazy one, I'd say.
Okay. What are you no longer afraid of?
I think this comes more and more with age. I'm less and less concerned about what people will say about me. I just be my best, show up at my best on whatever day that is, and whatever que sera, whatever people will be. And I'm less concerned about what people will say about that. And if it's not good, I'm human, so I still like, oh really, kind of thing. But I think my bounce back time, which I call the resilience, is much, much better nowadays. So I don't fret too much. I'm like, okay, whatever, we move on. I did my best, and that's all I can say. Yeah.
And do you have any unusual habits or rituals?
Unusual habits? No, I don't have unusual habits, but I'm trying a ritual right now, a bedtime ritual. So I have never been very ritualistic, but I think having rituals are quite nice right now. So I'm trying to stop watching TV so much, and then perhaps do more 9 o'clock has started, you need to try, be a bit more calm down, calm the nerves down, do certain ritualistic like candles, whatever, meditation, stuff like that. Listen to beautiful music. I think music is another one that I rediscovered, as I think it helps, pace you out. I enjoy music during cooking. I used to cook. Why is it taking so long to cut all these vegetables up? Now with the music, I feel, why? No more vegetables to cut. I can cut some more vegetables. So I think rituals help in terms of getting me in sync with the environment. And I'm trying all these, say, enriching rituals for myself.
And since you're talking about music, what kinds of music, or what favorite singers or genres?
I think the music, I have always been classical music. I've been trained, where I played piano last time when I was young and things. So I've always appreciated the classical music. right? So when like in teams, I say, can we have the classical? Everybody like, oh my gosh, Wendy, we're doing OT right now. We want to sleep, you know. so classical is one that I like because of there is math, like mathematics in classical music. So I enjoy that part. And lately I sort of gone back to the stuff that teenagers where I like. So it's like 80s kind of thing. I like the 80s music, the 90s music. I think every genre helps me remember the times. So like, when you were what age, what were you doing? It helps transport you back to wherever you are. So I think of where I want to be transported, then I'll play that music. And it's quite easy to get there.
So finally, where can people find you online and how can they connect with you?
My name is Wendy Wong, but there's just so many Wendy Wongs out there. So to find me, you go for Coach Wendy Wong. If you put a coach in front of the Wendy Wong, I will pop up in the Google or anywhere. For LinkedIn, I also name myself as Coach Wendy Wong so that I will show up for you. The other place to find me is Petadiri. Petadiri is, Petadiri, which is map of yourself. So petadiri.com is the place that they can find me.
So it's Petadiri.
Yes.
Right, .com.
Petadiri.com.
Yes. Yeah. So thank you so much, Wendy. I really enjoyed talking to you. Even though, as listeners would know, I sound muffled, I have the flu, but I told myself I have to be present and in this interview with Wendy because I know she has a fantastic story to share. And I'm glad I didn't start sneezing in the middle of our interview.
Yes, and thank you, Krista. The work that you do is amazing. I'm very inspired because you inspire so many of us. I follow your channel as well, and hearing the stories really enrich us. It gives us strength when sometimes we're feeling a bit like, we need a bit more fuel. Your work does that for us, and I'm really, I want to take this opportunity to thank you for your consistency and for your vision for creating this for us. So thank you.
Oh, thanks, Wendy. But, for me, when I created this, I was also thinking of, like I said, right? I'm also thinking like, okay, what are the other stories of women out there? I'm sure there are plenty more. I'm sure, and also every woman I've had on my podcast tells me this. When they listen to other stories of other women who have similar struggles, who have, similar startup challenges in their business, it makes them feel like less lonely, right? The world is smaller, closer. We feel that at least I know that I'm not the only one struggling with this problem. So I guess that is my vision, is also to share all these stories so that we know that, like you mentioned, business is hard, right? And if we can really dispel some myths about it, if we can talk honestly about our own struggles, I'm sure some woman or man out there, maybe the men are also listening,
yes,
can find real, can find this solidarity in a way. I call it solidarity, that we feel that entrepreneurship is hard, but each of us is actually building a dream. And I'm sure you're still building your dream, right? 7 years on, you're still building your dream, even though your dream is pretty much stabilized. You have your stable of clients and all that, but I'm sure it is still part of what makes you wake up every morning and go like, hey, I am doing the work that I love to do. And I think it's a pleasure, right, when you can do the work that you love to do.
Yeah. And just to add to your listeners and everyone out there, I've made so many friends just by connecting, right? The world, it's like Krista, you and I, we connected online as well. And so anytime, right? Connect. We are here for each other. And I think it's important to support each other as well. So let's do that and let's keep on doing it.
Yeah. And I think that is the beauty of today's world, right? Like you said, digital. I mean, there is no person out there that you cannot find. If you can look at their LinkedIn profile, you can find them and you can message them directly. And I think that is the thing that most people don't realize, is that all this enables us to get direct access to the person that you want to connect with. And it's easier and easier these days. So why we should all do that, right? We should all make a friend, and not just for business purposes, but just make a friend and see where that relationship goes, and it may take you to beautiful places.
Yes, and global places as well. So yeah.
So thank you once more, Coach Wendy Wong. I will say Coach Wendy Wong, so that people can Google you and find you and reach out to you, and maybe become that person that works with you.
Thank you, Krista.
I hope you had some aha moments with this episode. I learned plenty too. What I learned from Coach Wendy is that, while she says she takes risks, she takes smart, calculated risks. The two CFAs that she hired to give her a snapshot of her financial resources and financial standing was such a strategic move. She knew her risks going into business, but as she says, she came into business backed by decades of experience in the corporate world. And of course, she also had experience from her years in finance and HR. And this is what I often advise other entrepreneurs. Know how long your runway is. If you have a long runway, like Coach Wendy Wong, you can decide who you want as clients. If you don't have a long runway, you may be accepting anyone and everyone who comes along as a client. A lousy client will be more challenging to shake off later. Another smart move was creating her website. Most people will do everything except create a website or hire someone to do so. But as I often advise my own clients, a website, when done well, is your best marketing asset. It saves you time from explaining what you do and gives you instant credibility, especially if you have information about your packages and solutions. People are always checking up on you online, so make sure your website is created to attract clients. Although Coach Wendy talks about coaching, her advice can be used for anyone who is considering starting a business. The reason we decided to record this episode is not to frighten off anyone keen to be in business, but to offer some helpful ideas based on real experience so that you can avoid the pitfalls. If you're new to this podcast, do subscribe so that you can get the latest episodes. If you're a returning listener, can you do me a favor? Please rate and review this podcast on your podcast app. It will go a long way in helping others discover my show. Thank you for listening, and I will see you next Friday with another brand new episode of Womenpreneur Asia.